right. Good evening, everyone. You could have been any place in the world, but you're here with us. We're 100 Roses from Concrete, the premier network for people of color in advertising, marketing, media, and PR. I go by the name of Kenny Thacker. If you don't know me, look me up because I'm a motherfucking legend. But I'm here to introduce my sister, member of the Tricycle. Um, there's so many things I could say about Erica, but I want to keep it short because we're starting late because motherfuckers be late sometimes. So on that note, I want you all to just listen tonight and definitely learn a lot, but also leverage everything that you're going to gain from these wonderful women on this panel. So to the panelists, I welcome you on behalf of 100 Rose from Concrete, and Erica, the Chief Diversity Officer of Omnicom Specialty Group. You all are in for a real big treat. We've been doing this all month, but this is how we close out. We close out strong and we close out hard. So just buckle in, because when it's a Sunnyside Chat with 100 Roses, you all already know what we do, what we talk about. We give you nothing but the 100% 80 proof truth of what's going on in this business and how we can grow and collaborate and continue to connect through sessions like this and many other things that we do throughout the year. So once again, welcome, and just sit back, relax, and maybe break out a little bit of a notebook too, because you're going to need to take some notes tonight. So once again, welcome. And Erica, let's do it.
I feel like I need that whoop, 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 that, where's that horn? I feel like I need all that coming out. Listen, yes. You know what? Thank you. First of all, I want to thank you so much, Kenny. I want to thank Francis, and I want to thank yes, that's what I was needing. Who did I missed someone, and I'm sorry. Hold on, because my brain just went. But anyway, I want to thank everyone who thought about me and thought about this wonderful panel of women you're going to meet. In our tech call the other day, you don't get to know people until you get to know people. And I'm a fan of each of these women that we're going to learn from tonight. And so I'm not going to try and do the justice of reading like that whole resume, although it deserves it. They earned it. Those are their receipts. But I want you to meet them today. I want them to talk and introduce themselves and give a little bit of background of who they are and answer this one question for me. Today in 2021, what would you have told you right now in this moment? What would you have told your 15-year-old self about where you are today? So I want you to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit, and then answer that question. So let's start with Traci Dinkins.
Oof, okay. Little trick question there. Hi, everyone. My name is Traci Dinkins. I am actually a Chief Client Officer at PhD Media, which is a part of the Omnicom Media Group. First of all, thank you so much for thinking of me as well for this panel. I know a number of folks on the call, but I've never joined one of your 100 Roses calls. So this is a real treat for me this evening. So thank you. Before I even begin, I think, what would I have told myself? That you would still be in this business, right? That it will continue to be a journey for you. I have to say, very early on, I knew that I actually wanted to work in advertising. I thought I would be a copywriter. I did not think I would be in media, but I would just tell myself, buckle in, because it's going to be a journey. You will learn a lot. You'll meet a lot of great people in the business. It won't be easy, but like everything else, that's to be expected, right? Lean on your family, lean on your friends, and keep pushing through. That's what I would tell myself.
Wow, that's great advice. And that little 15-year-old would probably be like, okay, I think I want to do something else. Just joking. Just kidding. Traci's an amazing person. We met at Uniworld, and Traci was really, ahead of her time because of the things that she was doing there. So I'm really happy to see that you did stick it out. And she's in the C-suite, y'all. Give it up, give it up, give it up. So that's awesome. Why don't we start next with Nakia? Nakia, I'm throwing it to you. Tell me a little bit about who you are, what you're doing, and what would you tell your 15-year-old self?
Sure. Nakia Clements. I'm the Chief Media Officer at Decoded Advertising. At 15, I thought I was going to be a doctor. So I would tell my 15-year-old self, you're not going to be a doctor. But it's okay. Trust your gut. Everything's going to work out. That's what I would tell myself.
Yes, I love that. And Meb, please say your name beautifully. I know I just cut it short, but and I really hate the fact that I have such a heavy Texas accent. I would mess it up. So please introduce yourself, and also, what would you tell your 15-year-old self?
Not at all. Please call me Mev. It's short for Mebrulin, but I think I co-own it with a Nigerian runner. So I'm keeping Mev Francisco, because if you search me, I'm the only one that you're probably gonna find. Today I lead audience and data practice across MediaCom. And I think what I would tell my 15-year-old self, and I'm gonna be very vulnerable tonight, guys, so just putting it out there. I come from a very humble background. So when I was 15, I thought that my biggest potential would be a receptionist. Not that there's anything wrong with it. I just thought that was the height of what I can do, because I didn't know anybody who in my whole family who did anything more than that. So I would tell that 15-year-old self, first, you are worth it. You are worthy. And the things that are in front of you, you won't even imagine. So don't be afraid to dream big.
I love that. You know what? Here's the themes that we just had from your journeys, and what you would tell yourself. Stay on the journey. Trust your gut. Be humble, because you're worthy and you're valuable. And those are words that really kind of speak to what this whole night is about, which, you know, although it's titled Where the Money Resides, I do believe there is a correlation between where the money resides and being confident. And so it doesn't surprise me at all that those are the words of very confident women. So again, the panel, Where the Money Resides, and we're trying to talk about how to find your confidence, get smart about power and politics, navigate the unspoken rules of promotions and negotiations, and get where the money resides. So as an overview, I think we've warmed up. We've had a great conversation. Let's jump right in, okay? We know that there are high levels of self-esteem or strong indicators and predictors of academic achievement in students. This is a trend that continues throughout our adult lives, with another study confirming a clear positive relationship between self-esteem and job performance. This relationship works both ways. Confidence in your abilities can improve your job performance, and by the same token, job success can seriously boost confidence levels. And, you know, in reading that, I think there's truth in certain parts of that. And I think when we talk about academic performance, I think sometimes some people mature a little bit slower than others in their academic achievement. And oftentimes in schools, and this is what we find to be in the problem with Brown and Black communities or people of color, is if you don't hit a certain mark, teachers and people in academia will sometimes not value your contribution, and very early on can take away some of your confidence. So knowing a little bit of that, hearing what the researchers say, I'm curious to hear from you all. Where does your confidence come from? Traci, start with you.
Yeah, for sure. And you guys, let me know if you can't hear me, because I think I may be sticking a little bit. But I have to say that my confidence over time has evolved. And what I mean by that is I come from a family of 4 sisters. I'm the youngest. And we all have our different strengths, as most siblings do. But I was supposed to be like the smart one, the one that stayed in school, the whole thing, right? Like a super creative sister, just the whole thing. We're all different, to the point where I had a sister who would fight me if I didn't do my homework, that kind of thing. That's what went down in the Dinkins household. So I was expected to do great things in this family of 4. The funny thing is that while I grew up feeling really confident in my abilities because of that, you become a part of a different dynamic at work where you lose some of that confidence based on feedback that you receive from bosses or from peers, or, you know, I went to public schools. I went to elementary school, high school, even I went to Baruch College. So there was always many of me in the room, no matter where I was, until I went into advertising. So I think that kind of jolted me. And when I got that feedback, there was a level of discomfort, I think, being the only person in the room, because I had very little support, right? So I think, to your question, confidence evolves. I think I felt fearless in my 20s, a bit frightened about some things and finding my voice in my 30s. I am much older than that now. And right now I found my voice, and I think super confident now. And I carry that with me every day, even if I may not necessarily be feeling that way. I'm going to show it in the meetings in which I'm in. So I think the response that I also get is that, yeah, she knows her stuff, and basically don't fuck with her. She's going to get stuff done. Or if you need something, go to Traci and she'll get it done. So to anyone on this, you know, on this call, if you felt that way over time, just know that confidence evolves, and that's okay. I think over time, you just need to remember that as long as you have that foundational learning, as long as you continue to grow, sometimes you have to do it on your own, because some folks may not come to you with the learning. So you have to find that on your own and just keep pushing through and being confident, even when you don't feel like it. It'll just happen, and you'll really begin to believe it over time.
I love that. Confidence is definitely an ebb and a flow. Yeah, that's I think an important part to impart. Meb, you want to talk to us about your confidence and where it comes from?
Yeah, and it's really funny because I've always been very outgoing from the very beginning of my career, but because I was more in the analytics space, I was always the only woman, the only woman of color, right? The only Latina, and at that point, I was younger. So I really thought I was coming in at a disadvantage. Like, you get to a point where you're thinking, well, maybe there's a reason why there's nobody else that looks like me. Maybe I really should not be here. Maybe I really don't belong. So there was a moment where I, you know, coming from my traditional immigrant kind of roots, it's like, at least you got a job. And then it kind of clicked to me at the very early in my career. I tried to emulate. This is what happened. I tried to emulate a boss, because I figured, well, she's analytics and she's very successful. Let me try to be her. And I did this presentation that to this day is seared in my memory because it was so awkward. I think everybody cringed. Even the presentation, like the computer itself cringed. Everybody was just cringing at how awkward it was, because I wasn't my authentic self. I wasn't me. I wasn't bringing Meb to the table. I was bringing somebody else, trying to be that person. And I realized this is pathetic. I can do much better. I got annoyed with myself, and basically said from that moment on, they're lucky to have me, because what I bring to the table, they don't even understand or know the value and the voice that I bring to the table. And they're lucky to have me. And that moment on, I made a vow to myself that I was going to stick true to who I was. And that, I guess a lot of that really stems from the fortitude that comes from my family, and from understanding that, at least in my perspective, the whole success of my family is really on my shoulders. Like, I say failure is it's not a word in my vocabulary. It can't be. I'm the first one to go to college. I'm the first one to get my master's. I'm the first one to get a white collar job. I'm the first one to get a house. I'm the first of many. I'm setting the tone. So that's also a big driver to that success, and connecting it with kind of understanding the power of my authenticity, the power that I bring to the table when I bring my full self with all my experiences to the table that nobody else can replicate. That's where I get that strength to continue and to be vocal in all, moving forward.
You guys, you give me like the chills, because it starts with the family, right? There's these expectations, but then you get out in the real world and you have to marry that expectation that may not be there anymore because you're by yourself, with that intrinsic self confidence that you can, I say, like, check out a book from the library. You can remember. A memory is like checking out a book. You can remember what your mother said, remember what your grandfather or grandmother or father, whatever. So, and that's a privilege that we have those memories, if you are able to have those memories. But definitely family comes in so many shapes and sizes. So I'm not saying it has to be what, quote unquote, a book definition is. So, Nakia. Help me out. Hey, you guys, make sure, hold on one second. Make sure you're muting, because if you don't mute, then I can hear some static. Right now I'm seeing Muhammad Floyd. Can you mute yours, please? Thank you. Go for it, Nakia.
Sure. My confidence was a combination of my academic abilities. I was always a high achiever academically. When that term Tiger Mom came out, I was like, oh, wow, there's finally a word for my mom. My mom was a Tiger Mom, okay? I was a straight A student. I was valedictorian of my high school class. If I had a B, I had to have an explanation of why I had a B. So, there was an expectation that you have to do it. You have to kill it in school. No exceptions. Definitely I relaxed that in college because I went to college in Atlanta at Spelman, but it's fine. I'm still here, right? And then another part of that is, which I think is really important, and has helped me a lot, especially in my career, is my work ethic. And that I learned from my grandfather. I grew up in a family business. My grandfather was an antique dealer for 30 years. And everyone in the family at some point worked in his store, but only if you did well and could do your job did you work in his store continuously, right? So, when I was like, I started working there when I was like 10, and he would, we'd agree to a price, and he'd say, okay, well, what tasks are you going to do in the store? This is what I need. I need the windows washed. I need the floor swept. I need the furniture polished. And then what's your rate? And I'd say, I think it was like $10, which was a lot of money to me at 10, right? And he'd say, okay, and then I'll paydays are Friday, right? So then I'd do what I needed to do, and then I'd come to him Friday, okay, Grandpa, payday. And he'd say, you didn't do the windows very well. Or he'd say, you didn't dust the furniture before you polished. So I learned from there, you have to do your job well, and you have to do it to the T as requested, because you're getting paid for it. And then sometimes he'd say, I don't know that this was a $10 week for you. Or if I did really well, he'd say, okay, let me give you a couple extra $2 because you did really well, right? So I learned, from that, I realized now I learned negotiating my worth and my work value at an early age. And I learned that if you're going to do the job, you got to do it right. Otherwise, what are you doing? And I have plenty of cousins, maybe they only have one summer, and I'd be like, Grandma, what happened to cousin Darren? He's like, he can't work for me. He didn't do his job right. And that's how it is. So work ethic is a huge, huge thing for me. And I think that's what gives me my confidence, understanding what I bring to the table and what I need to do and striving for excellence. So.
Yeah, listen, these are wonderful stories. I love that whole, the expectation again, right? You had a grandfather that expected something from you. And I think that's a driver that we see trending. And actually, it's also what we see lacking, but that's a whole nother conversation, okay? All right, so let's jump in. Is there advice that you would have given yourself about developing confidence? And we kind of talked about this, about what you would tell yourself, in your 15-year-old self, but in developing confidence, we didn't really get into that as much, right? So if you could just go 5 years forward, because isn't that weird? 15 plus 5 is 20. I think about a 15-year-old, and only in 5 years they get to be 20. So there's a whole lot of learning that happens in there. And I would almost say now we have peer pressure being even that much more because of the centralization of internet. So as we're talking, remembering our audience, what are some of the things that you would give them to help them through this messy middle of being 20? And also, does it differ from what you tell yourself today? Traci, I know we keep starting with you, but that is your question, so I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. No, it's totally fine. That's what we're here for. I would say that when I was 20, early 20s, whatever, I would say that the one thing that I did relating it to work, right? So I just tried to take advantage of as many internships as possible when I think about that path back then. And it didn't matter where that internship was. I actually started at CBS, right? I didn't even start at an agency, but that allowed me to sort of begin to interact with people and see, what folks were doing behind those walls, and really apply those college learnings to real life, right, in media. And that told me really early back then, I didn't really want to be on the vendor side. I actually want to see where the work is made, as an example, right? So then I actually went to Bates. So if anyone remembers Bacchus Vogel Bates back in the day, he came to Baruch. He actually spoke to us about the business. And, I just literally sent him an email and I said, hey, I remember when you came and you spoke to my college. I want to work there. I went in as a coordinator working on cigarettes. I don't even know if they let like young kids work on cigarettes anymore, but I mean, that's what I was doing. The bar was in the building, the whole thing, but then that allowed me to meet so many more people at the agency, not only media people, but the creatives, the account folks. I learned how things worked. My ears were always open to that, right? So I wasn't there to just do my job. I was really listening to conversations, and I made a point of making friends with everybody, from the bottom to the top as much as possible. And I tried to have conversations with people and learn more about what they did and how I could get into it, and even work on pitches really, really early in. I think another thing I told myself was jump around a little bit, right? I think a lot of people get dinged in interviews when they say don't jump around. I believe in jumping around if an experience is not paying off to my benefit. And what I mean by that is I don't want to wait 5 years and realize I'm at a place where the culture is wrong, the people don't fit with what I'm trying to do, we don't have the same approach or even work ethic or whatever you want to call it. I will jump in a year if it means that it's to the betterment of my professional career, because I'm very calculated and have been very calculated about my career. So I know I'm veering from my 20-year-old self, but that it was my earlier self where I was very particular. That's actually how I went to Uniworld. I knew that after working at Bates, I wanted to work at an African-American owned shop. I was tired of working with people where I didn't see a lot of me. And I've been following Byron's story for years. It was like Clarence Smith and Byron Lewis. That's all I knew. And I knew that I wanted to learn from them and be in that environment. And literally when I went to Uniworld, I learned how to pitch. I learned how to write. I worked with people like Lonnie Staley, who taught me how to think differently about things. And it was an amazing experience. So to everyone on the call, I think in short, it's feel comfortable with the changes that you make, even if it means leaving a situation that you don't feel that great about. It's okay to move on and to cut it short, to really listen to what people are talking about in the halls and listen to how they're talking about things and interacting with folks, and move away from your desk, because you will be forgotten if you sit at your desk all day. And those are probably the two biggest lessons that I learned early on.
Listen, Tasha Gilroy, she mentioned in the chat room, being calculated about your steps. It's very important. And I had written down, you do your homework. Something that you mentioned is it wasn't like willy-nilly, you didn't feel stuck. You were doing your homework. You were reading the trades, you were engaging. And I'm curious, and we'll get back to this later, about types of professional associations and things like that outside of work that you engage in to help build that network. And be a student, always be a student. That's what I heard, right? That builds your confidence by being a student, not being the know-it-all. I love that. Nakia, how have you found your right to be a leader? Wow, that's a loaded question, right? And how has your confidence allowed you to self-advocate for yourself?
Well, first I'll say, I don't really look at being a leader necessarily as a right. I look at it as being more of a discipline. Because when you're a leader, there's a certain level of accountability you need to be comfortable and ready to handle, and an amount of responsibility you have for your team and for their careers as well. A story that I told that's really funny, I learned this the hard way, and I'm not kidding, guys, it still haunts me to this day. When I was in high school, I was the editor-in-chief of the yearbook, okay? I did it for my college applications, of course, because I needed a leadership role. And I did a terrible job. I was really distracted. I don't know, I spent too much time with my boyfriend, definitely. I had senioritis, okay? And I didn't take it serious enough. And why this still haunts me is because my class has the worst jankiest yearbook ever to this day. And I still apologize to my classmates, okay, to this day for that. And it was a very important, valuable failure lesson, because I learned that when you're a leader, if you're not exercising the discipline of the leader, if you're only doing it for the title, that's not enough, because the way you're impacting other people lives on, and it matters, okay? And it reverberates, and it, you know, they're 20 something years later, I have friends, people out there that have a janky yearbook because of me, and it is my fault. I am accountable for that. And it bothers me. So that was a great lesson that I learned. And then I went on, when I got to college, I was editor-in-chief of the college newspaper. And I always had that lesson in the back of my mind, and it helped me, and it motivated me to do the job right. And when you're a leader, like it's never perfect. It's just understanding and appreciating that it's not just about you, it's about other people and their experience at that company, working with you, being a part of your team.
Yes, I agree with you, Cameron Carr. Those were gems, diamonds even. You just dropped, Nakia. You talked about failure. Failure can be one of the biggest pivoting. You can pivot and you can learn from it, or you can curl up in fetus position. And then, I don't know about you, but I love a good life. So fetus position doesn't get you good life, okay?
Yeah.
I love leadership matters. That's hashtag leadership matters, or else you'll have a janky yearbook that will haunt you.
Yep.
That's going to be your next present. Not to mention that cute little dog that just came on in that frame with you.
That's Dominic.
I don't even know what else you said after he came.
That's Dominic.
I'm going to also say one other thing that was said, Traci, and then you also said it, being uncomfortable. I know, Traci, you said be comfortable moving, but actually moving and changing is always a very uncomfortable thing, and be okay with that. Be all right with being uncomfortable, right? There are good people that are supporting you along the way. That's why you have Rebecca Rivera's, and you have Felicia's and Tasha's, and you have Jad's, and you have so many people, including the reason why we're here today, Kenny. So next question, Meb, how important is confidence in getting tracked as a high potential by leadership? This is a very good question.
Yeah, this is a very, very important one, for especially if you're starting off in your career, and even if you're more into your career, right? To understand it, I think I can share what has really worked well for me. I think first, this is something that I believe in the deepest part of my heart, that we all have special gifts, and those gifts are unique. Those talents are unique to you. Nobody can take them away. Nobody can copy them. Nobody can try to replicate it, because there are a combination of your experiences, your intrinsic motivations, your drivers, everything that makes you, you. And those are special gifts that you and only you have. You have to start identifying and finding what those gifts are. Defining them very clearly so that you start believing in those unique gifts, right? Because you can identify, but you might go back and like, yeah, but I don't believe that. The third thing is that then you have to talk about these gifts, because it's not only identifying, it's not only believing in them, but also talking them up. Get into the habit, get into the practice of talking about those gifts and what you bring to drive impact. That's very, very important, especially if you have this dynamic vision of yourself going up that and climbing that ladder, right? And don't be afraid. I mean, the first thing that's going to be uncomfortable, and I share this experience, that one of the CEO of Group M used to sit across from me. And I saw him every day, in and out, every day, in and out. And then one day I said, today is going to be the day when he gets to learn Mebrulin Francisco. And I just approached him and say, hey, how you doing? Now, usually when people say, hi, how you doing back? The first thing you say, oh, I'm good. And you leave it at that. What I started doing is start talking about all the work. At that time, I was leading the multicultural analytics team at Group M. It was the first time in its class we were building something like that to tell the stories and the value of the multicultural consumer, represent that value in the boardroom. And I started talking about a project we did for Target. this thing that we did for NBCU, this thing that we did over here, this trend that over there, this innovation over here. Before you know it, that CEO started coming to me for other projects, including me in other meetings. Until this day, he's left and we still connect. And I have built this relationship where we can talk about anything and everything. And I include him as a sponsor as well as a mentor. So that's the power of knowing what that talent is, because you have it. That gift is yours, you have it, you just have to make sure you find it. Making sure you believe it. Believe that that talent is uniquely yours. Talk about it. Don't be afraid, because at the end of the day, they're just people. They're just people.
And I just want to, can I piggyback off of that? First of all, I want to say Meb is brilliant, okay?
Right.
We worked together before. She's incredible. If you ever get to work with her, feel blessed. Secondly, I want to piggyback off of that. When I started my role, I offered to everyone, I have a team of 75 people. I offered to everyone, hey, I'm trying to get to know everyone. Put time in my calendar. Just put time in my calendar. Let's chat. If you want, and also I had at the time 2 direct reports. Then there were 5 direct reports under them. Of the 5 direct reports, I said, if you guys want to have a regular status with me, I offered it up. Let me know. Only one person did it. And so I got to know him. And let me tell you something, 3 months later, I promoted him. And now I have more direct reports. And I don't know that it would have happened because he made sure I got to know him and got to know his work. So it works and people do that. So don't underestimate that.
Yeah.
The power of that.
First, I want to say define your gifts is that is a gift to give our audience. And it's also a gift to reimagine, right? We have to always be reimagining. I don't care where you get to the C-suite and then you're like, what else am I going to do? Right? It just never really stops. And so, and hashtag tithe at Meb, pass the plate. Just want to let you all know I'll be passing the plate because we want to start the church of Meb. Brilliant. Thank you. Driving impact, someone said to me, Eric, I want to help you find the forest for the trees. I want to help you find the forest for the trees. I want to help you find, right. So what they were saying was, you are really inundated in this forest right now, and I need you to find your tree to elevate yourself so you can, first of all, think, contemplate, meditate, and then be seen. Elevate, but be seen. But before you're seen, be purposeful and authentic, which you said again, and find your gift. And when you're speaking from your gift, it's not bullshit. We can't curse, right? We can curse, right? Yeah, we can curse. I've been watching TikTok and you young folks curse way more. And I know you, Kenny.
Kenny's a sailor.
But I had to punctuate with that because it's so true. So thank you guys. What a wonderful, listen, I'm all teary-eyed right now. Question for the group. What does it mean to be or bring your authentic self? Yes, let's dig into this because I hear this all the time. I want to be my authentic self and I'm torn between what this means. And I love, Meb, what you said in our initial conversation. The same with you, Nakia. You also brought something to this that made me kind of recognize maybe I should be looking at this differently. But I'm Gen Z, so I'm Gen X, excuse me. But I'm kind of sort of Gen Z in my wish. So anybody jump in on that.
Go ahead, Nakia.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's something that I'll be honest, transparent. Like that's something I'm always working on and figuring out. I think when I was younger, I really had this differentiation between work and personal. And actually, I would say the last 5 years, as I've had areas of opportunity, I've really figured out and learned like, oh, there's some parts of my personality with my friends that if I bring it to my work me, it actually helps me, right? So I think this ties back to Meb, talking about, what's in you, your gift inside you. And for me, my personal struggle was being able to bring my personal gifts to my work gifts and making them align so that people could understand me better. Because the truth is, most people out here, I have people that work for me now that have never had a Black female boss, okay? So it's difficult for them. And, I usually come from a place of, I don't care as long as you get the work done. But I'm realizing that it's not always coming from a place of bias necessarily. Sometimes it's a place of they have never experienced it. So it's helpful when I am my true self outside of work.
Which is bias. I'm sorry to cut you off, but that is bias.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Well,
you just made it.
It is. But I mean, it's not necessarily that they are racist. It's just that intentionally racist. It could be that I'm different. It's weird. I don't know.
So as my father would say, you accidentally shot me, but I'm still dead.
Right. Yeah. But having worked in the Midwest, I feel like maybe that's where I'm coming from, because I've worked in the Midwest for many years, very different breed of people there. So I think that I just think that sometimes it's better to be, sometimes it helps me to not be all business all the time, which tended to be my work persona.
Okay.
The net of it.
Yeah, and just to add to that, like with authentic, self, for me, and this was interesting, right? Because I went and changed roles to a more technical, like my background's in, market research, and then I went deep into analytics, database management and creation, and then analytics again, and then back into the tech. And there was nobody that looked like me, right? Like I found this one Black woman who was a project manager, and the first thing I did was to go up to her like if she was God sent, because I just felt like I was missing that sense of belonging at that moment in time. But it's also bringing what you guys see, this vulnerability. I'm a preacher's kid. It's so ingrained in who I am. I grew up in the South Bronx, so I'm Latina, like I am an immigrant, Spanish language comes out, like this passion, like all of this, and in a very technical analytic field full of men, there was a moment where I wanted to bring a program all about celebrating that story, that authenticity. And the idea was like, if you knock down the walls on yourself, you allow and you give permission for others to do so. And I'm not gonna lie, it was intimidating, because all these guys very stoic, like back to business. And I come in talking about purpose and vulnerability and embracing yourself and all of this. And at first I got the best feedback. A couple months after that, this one person that worked in my team came up to me and said, Meb, when you first joined the team, I didn't know what the heck you were doing. I really didn't think that you'd belong. After I started seeing you in meetings, I got it. And then when I started seeing you and how authentic and that nothing stopped you from being you, it allowed me to be me. So thank you. So it's also that is bringing all those experiences and allowing grace. Like, yes, we have biases, and yes, there's these walls that sometimes people put around themselves to protect themselves. But if you just allow a little bit of those walls to show that beautiful gift that is you, you'd be surprised and amazed how many more people are willing to do the same.
I love that. And that, to me, that's a confidence, but that's also loving your culture, loving your culture. And I think that's an authentic self, loving your culture, right? Okay, so listen.
I think that's if I can just add to all of this, because it's such a layered question. I don't even know if it's, for me, loving my culture or being comfortable enough to share it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, but in addition to that, right, over time, I began to realize that the more I began to hold back on who I was at work, that I would come home frustrated, because I was holding so much of myself back. Yeah. Whether or not it was my culture, whether or not it was my opinion early on, especially when I knew something was wrong or off or could be made better. Also working on accounts like Pepsi or State Farm or Nike, right? And I knew that all of these brands were basically driven by culture and I wasn't talking about it, it began to frustrate me more because I knew more about the culture than any of these people who were trying to sell these media ideas, if that makes sense. So I think bringing your authentic self to work it's multi-layered, but I think once you find your voice, you not only begin to love what you do even more, but then also people begin to also value your opinion more. You love your voice more, right? Because you're sharing more of yourself at work. And it's just, it's a better experience, quite honestly, to put it very, very simply. You're doing better work because you're bringing all of yourself to work. And that's what authentic means to me in the work environment, as opposed to just showing folks, who I am as a Black woman. It's all of that.
Right. Now listen, confidence, passion, and purpose. So we got all of our confidence, we've got our passion, we've got our purpose, we got receipts, we know what we're doing. And the name of this is Where Does the Money Reside? Or as he would say, where the money reside, where the money reside. Do you think the money can reside without confidence, passion, and purpose? So think about that. And let me dig in, because people are here because they want to know where the money resides. And I would argue that we needed to get this first layer of understanding that the money resides within that confidence, passion, and purpose journey, and that value. So now we've got all of this. We know our value, we know our purpose, we've got our passion, and we've shown our receipts. How do you go about determining your worth? What are reliable resources you recommend consulting? So now let's go back to the tactical. Let's give some tactical steps to our audience. And I'd like to start with Meb first, and then go to Nakia, and then Traci.
Yeah, it's interesting because this is so important, right? We underestimate, like I was listening to a podcast, and it's not that we are underpaid, it's sometimes we ask too little of what we're worth because we perceive that our value is not as great as it is. So in my own personal journey, there's 3 experiences and tactics that I use. One is, believe it or not, talking to a trusted group of peers and allies, where we do have conversation about salary. That's become very empowering and has helped me tremendously, so I know to set the stage and the tone. The second is doing the research. Sometimes it's worth going on those interviews to find out how much your net worth is, how much people are willing to pay. I remember that in one of my journeys, I left one of the agencies. I was bypassed for a position that I was doing already. It's not that I I was executing that position, that role for many months. And I was being groomed by my boss before me to do this. And they bypassed me for another person outside of the company, who, by the way, I was supposed to train on how to do their job. Ooh. And I went to HR and was like, why is this happening? And the feedback was, well, you're not ready for this position. You're not ready for this role. You're not ready. I was like, but I'm doing this already. And here's all my receipts. Here's all the client engagement. Here's all the projects I've been leading. What the heck? So that's when I said, all right, time to shop around. And I threw a number that in my mind, it was crazy, but I had talked to peers, right? And in this instance, I know, Erica, you have mentioned few HR people who have really been on your side. I've been lucky and fortunate that I've had friends who are of color, mind you, who are in HR, who've kind of been my sponsor, my help in this journey as well. And they've helped me kind of orchestrate and say, this is what these salaries are going for. This is what we're seeing. I went ahead and negotiated that. And when that came about, I ended up going that route. So circle of peers, doing your research. Sometimes it's worth the interview, right? And also figuring out, even if the salary, if people are not comfortable telling you the exact salary, what's the percentage increase? Get a range, right? Start get nifty and hustle your way through that answer. There's ways to creative ways to that answer that you can use and say, this person, 3 people are getting 25 to 30%. Let's start applying it there.
Yes, absolutely. And adding to that, and I want to take a little bit from what Traci had mentioned earlier about being calculated about her career. You are the CEO of you and your career. And you have to also remember and understand no one will ever advocate better for you than you. So you have to be comfortable with that responsibility and confident in that. You know, my work ethic lessons that I've learned, you know, for me, and what I always tell mentees, people that I'm talking to, you know, you have to lead with excellence. That's your currency. And when I approach roles, you know, I have criteria that I set for myself when I think about a role that I'm taking on. You know, so I have 3 things I need. It's money, the people, the work. I can take a role with 2 out of 3, but I can't take a role with just 1. I know this is called where the money reside, but sometimes I've learned the hard way. It's not always about the money, right? It has to be the right fit for you. So if you're taking accountability for what and you're confident in what you're bringing to the table, then, you know, you have to advocate for that, do your homework, do your research, and don't be afraid to have that discussion, you know, and with your bosses, with your group, your teams, and say, all right, here's what I'm looking for. Here's what I've delivered. This is what I'm doing. What's next? And have those discussions. I mean, a few times in my career, I've had to sit down with bosses and basically, like a lawyer, surgically retort their reviews. I have done this many times and it works. And they changed the scores. And it wasn't comfortable. It was tough, but I did it because in my mind, CEO Nakia of Nakia's work, okay, here's what I expect that I'm going to be treated. This is what I'm expecting to get out of what I'm doing for you in this role. Yeah. And I always make sure whatever I'm doing, I'm getting out of it what I need to get out of it, because I have a plan and I'm calculating what I need from that experience.
Do you ever rehearse what you're gonna say? Someone told me early on, rehearse what you're gonna say, because when your emotions and your nerves start to get to the best of you, you might not say what you mean to say. So do you all rehearse?
Absolutely. And I try to take emotion out of it as much as possible. That's why it's important to take seriously and think about your work and lead with your work, with the excellence, because then that makes the case very easy. And then have your receipts, and it's hard to compete with receipts when you're having the discussion with people. A lot of people that manage you, some of them are too lazy. Some of them, they're not really paying attention to you. Some of them talk to one person, some girl you work with another department that doesn't even like you. And she's like, I don't like her. And then she's like, okay. And then she's giving you some half-ass review. You can't tolerate that. I can't tell you, I've had really uncomfortable meetings where I'm like, where you have an example for this? Because I did X. So where is this feedback coming from? Exactly. Thank you.
Yes.
And then they backed up. Okay. And then I got, totally turned everything around. Do not be afraid to do that. And I go into every situation like that. If you're going to come at me with your feedback, make sure you have your receipts as my manager.
Keep your tally. Keep your score.
Sorry,
Traci.
Yes.
I'm sorry, because it's 8:50. It's what time is it? It's
8:57.
But keep it moving. Keep it going.
Yeah. I'll be super quick, because
you don't even have to be super quick, because
I agree.
Gems.
I agree with all of this. So I think I'll just add the few that I have. I believe in renegotiating everything. Right. So even if you are in a negotiation and it sounds really good to the point where you're sitting in front of either HR or a headhunter and you just want to smile because you never thought you would make so much, still renegotiate, because they always work on a range. And I've learned that the hard way, and you leave your money on the table, not theirs. You leave your money on the table. So renegotiate everything. I don't care if it is renegotiating business class and first class versus coach. I don't care if it's renegotiating extra days if they don't give you any more money. It may be a tech salary, because we all need phones and we all watch Netflix and we all need to stay in touch with what media is hot or what's not. Tech salary, renegotiate everything, because at the end of the day, if you don't, again, it's your money. Always remember that. And it's your money because at the end of the day, what they're getting from you is your work and your resources. So I would just say, I'm going to lead with that, renegotiate everything. And I think also, I think Nakia said this, keep your own personal sort of shine sheet. That's what I call it for myself. And I like to work quarterly just because most of the time I'll do quarterly reviews with my people. So I ask the same of my boss. And it's really hard when you think about all of the work that you do every day to think about your successes 12 months out, right? What did you do in January? You have no idea because you've done 50 other things. Keep your own personal shine sheet on your personal computer. I wouldn't necessarily run my work computer, but on your personal computer so that you can always go back and have a record of what you brought to the table and contributed, because you've done a lot. We just forget about what we do all the time. So again, just to be additive to what the ladies are saying, your own personal shine sheet and renegotiate everything. If you remember that, then at least you won't feel as if, you know, your salary or your contributions have been undercut in any way.
So you just said something that's gonna make me think about it. I want to do a speed round because you talked about shine sheet. What are things most people don't know can be negotiated? Start with you, Traci. Give me one.
Money.
Well, we know we can negotiate money. Give me another one.
Okay. Tax salary, bonuses, additional compensation packages like stock to a certain degree, especially if you're working for a startup versus someone like an OMG, right? But if you're working for a startup, there are other benefits.
And for those mentors, I'm sorry, hold on. For those mentors that are in the audience, and I see you all, Felicia and Tasha and Gary, put it in the chat. What are some things that people don't know you can negotiate for that most people don't know? You said tech salary, especially now that we're working from home. What does that mean? Tech salary, I mean, tech is what?
Honestly, we didn't know that we would be working at home. You might need a chair or a desk. You can negotiate some things around those areas to help you work.
Okay.
Right. And quite honestly, another thing that I've negotiated over time is being able to attend a conference. Quite honestly, that's one key reason why I've been able to go to past conferences, which is where you learn so much and meet people. So negotiate that early on.
Oh, that's awesome. Personal development. Somebody put in the chat, I think Rebecca put in the chat, daycare. Nakia, I'm asking you, what are some things most people don't know is negotiable?
Vacation time. I can't live without at least 8 weeks vacation. So I have to negotiate that usually.
Is that based on your level of where you are? Did you start off negotiating that?
I did not. I had a role where I had a lot of vacation time, and it was like when I was mid-level, and I was just like, this is how I need to live. And so every job, I always, if it's not included, now I'm at a place where we have unlimited, so I'm good. But anytime I'm someplace where, you know, there's, you know, a little chintzy with that, I'm like, yeah, no, I need more vacation time.
Okay.
And usually the way you can look at that is, if it's offered as part of your package, it is part of your compensation. So if you have a precedent of that, of where you come from, that is actually an easy thing to negotiate. And some people don't know that. And then they end up, I had a job where my colleague, she only had like 4 weeks, and she was like, wow, we talked about it. She's like, I didn't negotiate that. I was like, girl, there was no way.
Yeah, no, I think that's really important. I'm seeing a lot of education reimbursement, certificate class. I think that's really important given this this environment that we're in, and there's so much technology that we need to learn, right? Meb.
So it's a little bit atypical, but definitely worth to include. I negotiate access. So for example, I wanted access. I see myself leading the company one day. So I said, I want access to the chief financial officer. I want to be able to have 6 sessions where I learn exactly how operations run. I also negotiated executive coaching, and not just like the half-ass thing that they have in the company that somebody kind of does. No, I want an executive coach who is certified and has license and does this for a living. And it was really what got me through a very difficult transition period and really elevated my game to connect with clients and with other people. Like those are kind of added things that you might not think because you're thinking about the dollar, But sometimes when you need to go to the next step, you also think about, okay, what are the trajectories that you need to take that might not necessarily equate to a dollar figure today, but will equate to and yield dividends long term. So if you start thinking about your future in that sense, that's also definitely open for negotiation.
Let me tell you, I've been to a lot of negotiation panels, and I hate when I'm left without understanding what you all just gave us. Gems, all of them. Thank you.
Wait, one other odd thing too, if you're going somewhere where you have to travel a lot, look into the corporate card situation. I had
Oh
to
yeah, that's a good one.
where only certain people had corporate cards, and I was going to an account where I had to travel a lot, and I was like, I need to have a corporate card if you expect me to do this job.
And also the driver, because you have VIP access to drivers,
Yep.
so that you don't have to take a taxi when you work late at night or when you get picked up.
That's only a special group M thing now, Meb.
And you know what? I love. Oh my God, Rebecca, yes, corporate apartment downtown. Let me tell you all something. Rebecca, what has been put into this chat, you all need to copy and paste it, and it needs to become a part of your notes. We talked about all of the confidence, we talked about negotiating, but I think what's really important here, and you guys, let me tell you something. Jennifer and Francis, what you all were able to do with these questions and how you all were able to curate, you know, this whole procession from starting at confidence up to negotiation is so spot on. Haven't had the privilege of sitting at a conference and hearing the types of information that you guys have been able to drop tonight. So consider yourselves blessed. Please take notes. Please take these notes with you and use them as you all move along your journey. I really don't want to end it, but I also want to be very, respectful of everyone's time, because we are working all day, every day. I don't understand how I ever made it to the office on time, because I can't get from my bedroom to my office in the house on time. So I want to thank each one of you women who are here, Traci, Meb, and Nakia. What brilliance. I'm so proud and so excited to have met you all and to see how we can collaborate further. So all of these wonderful women who put this together, Jen and Francis, thank you. Wonderfully thoughtful questions. And to all of those mentors that constantly show up, Gary, if we don't know, you all should know them. Everybody, Clarence, Gary, everybody, give yourselves a round of applause, because you guys show up, and thank you.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Jamar. Hey,
Thank you, Erica.
Hey. Shout out to Kristen too for working on this. Thank you, Kristen. Thank you so much. The whole Women's Heritage Month team, women and you guys. Thank you everyone for attending. Catch you on the next one. Thank you everyone. Have a good night. Stay safe.
Be safe. Bye-bye now.
Thank you, DJ.
Thank you.
Bye, Erica.
DJ Francis.
Thank you.
DJ Francis Boogie.
Oh yeah, I gotta put the.
Hi, Alicia, I miss your face. Let's talk. Let's have
Yeah.